Okay, I believe we have all the panelists in attendance. If could we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
I pledge
allegiance
allegiance
to
to the
To the
flag
flag of
of
the
the
United
United
States of
States of
America
America
and
and
to the
to the
republic
republic
which
for which
which
it
stands
stands,
one
one
nation
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with
indivisible,
liberty and
with
justice for all.
liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, thank everyone for joining us this evening. Just the documents that you have in front of you, you could see the agenda today. I just wanted to let the committee know many of these policies that we're talking about as you went through them could see that they're mostly related to health related issues, and a lot of them are because of the pandemic that we're currently in, to make sure that we are following guidelines set forth by the, whether it be the state or the federal level. So that's where a lot of these recommended changes are coming from. On policy 203, policy 314, and policy 803, you'll see language that is directly related to the current pandemic with COVID. Policy 203, you'll see that we have a copy here, and I'll scroll to the part in green. You can, as you're aware, of the revisions. So you could see the guidelines that are being recommended from state and local officials. These are also recommended from PSBA as well, to meet the requirements regarding immunization that is out there in all certificates. I will let the board know, the committee know, that regarding immunizations for this year, there has been an extension given to students because of the backlog with the pandemic. Many facilities were closed. Students couldn't get doctors visits in on a timely fashion. So the PDE and the state officials have offered an extension for requirement for immunization. But with that being said, we still communicate with the parents and try to get them to understand the importance of having those immunizations updated on a yearly basis.
Yeah, Mr. Cleaver, if you scroll down under immunizations, there is a typo. Scroll up a little bit further up, please. They're beginning multiple dose vaccines.
Oh, it does. Okay, yes.
If you would please have that corrected, that would be
Yep.
great.
Yeah, when we revise that,
Yep.
sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. That's what we're here for, to just review what the document is and what it looks like and what the contents are. So I know you see you have regular students, homeless students, foster care students, everyone covered under
Yes.
that policy.
And everything else that is in the green was currently in our policy. So again, the green is the only thing that has been, added or revised.
Okay.
Any questions regarding the? And this was also reviewed by our school nurse and our pandemic supervisor.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, in the event that they come out with a COVID-19 immunization, are they going to require that to have entrance to the school? And is that going to be a board decision, or with the board's approval, they abdicated that authority to the superintendent? Is that correct?
I'm not aware how they would handle that. That would have to come from the state. If they would have something to where the students would be required to get it. I do know even immunizations that they say are required, if it's relation to health or religious issues, they can't be held accountable for not having them. So I don't know, to answer your question, Mr. Bradley, I'm not aware of them putting that decision at the local level. Usually it's something that comes from the state. And as a superintendent, I know they would not give a superintendent authority to either mandate that or not.
Or restrict someone from actually entering the school for not having that immunization or their, I'll use the term objection.
Yeah, well, I mean, currently the way it's written, any immunization, like I said, if the parent or the guardian does not feel that, for health for religious related reasons that they get immunizations, we just have to have that on record that that's why the students don't have those immunizations.
And can you scroll back to the top of this policy for a second?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So you're looking at 203. Why is your copy of 203 showing 12 pages when the copy you sent to us only shows 6?
It's,
Because a copy showing 12 pages, up here,
Yeah, you show your
that is the whole agenda.
You have it as part of that.
Yeah, it's all, if you look, they're all encompassing. So the other policies are included in that count.
Okay, thank you.
Policy 314.
Well, hold on a second. So
Oh, sorry.
policy. So if 203 is 6 pages and policy 803 is 3 pages, that's 9 according to my count, right? And then Common Core of policy 314 is 4. Are you missing a page? Plus the agenda? I just wonder why they don't match. You have the agenda. So I got policy 314 I have is 4 pages. Policy 705 I have is 5 pages.
Policy 203 is 3 pages.
I have it as 6.
yes, you have both. You have the old and new
We
version.
have the old and the new.
And
Yes,
you're,
they're
and
both.
you're only showing the new.
Right.
So if you look, you have 2 copies of policy 203, you have 2 copies of policy 314, 705, and 803. So you
Okay.
have you have the new policy with the revisions and what our current one looked like.
And that's separate from what you have. Your
Yeah, I don't have
documents
the
as
old
well.
ones listed
Okay.
in here,
Thank you.
just the new ones. Policy 300 for employees. Policy.
Hold on 1 second. I apologize. We're still on 203, correct? For a second
Yes,
here.
without
All right.
question.
So on 203, it says the authority in order to safeguard the school community, right? Certain communicable diseases, guidance of orders of the state health officials, which we understand they have their authority, establish board policy, which would be this policy and where are the other ones, and board guidelines, which I still have not seen a single written board guideline in my 3-year tenure as a board of director. Where are those guidelines listed? Are they just what do you consider to be your documented guidelines? I mean, I understand the health and safety plans, we have that. But you change some of this, right? It's now guidance under orders established by the board. So where is this board's guidelines documented?
I'm not sure what you're referring to as far as board
It's very
guidelines.
simple. The board has policy. We have documentation of those policies. They're listed and they're published on the web. In this policy, it also says that the board required that these guidelines, right, and policy and guidelines. We're talking about page 2. Go up a little bit.
Well, the guidelines are right here that are part of the policy.
Just those guidelines within this policy?
That's what they would be referring to.
Okay. Thank you. So to make sure I'm clear then, all of our guidelines are only documented within our policy.
There is guidelines, yes, within all our policies.
Yeah, but is there any other guidelines other than those documented within the policy?
No, not that I'm aware.
Mr. Stern, I'm going to have to ask you this question because you're the board member. He's just the subordinate administration. Mr. Stern, other than the guidelines documented within the board policies, does this district have any other guidelines that are documented outside of the policy?
Could you
provide-
elaborate on what you're really questioning, Mr. Bradley?
Yeah,
What other
I'll be-
what other type of guidelines? You mean
Very much
like
so.
the security plans, these, that, and the other thing? Yes, we
Eh,
do have things that aren't documented in policy because they're not public knowledge.
Thank you. So that's part of it. So we do have a safety plan. I recognize that does not always get perfectly published to the.
No, it doesn't get published at all because it's our safety plan, and we don't want to let the information out of how we have safety.
Well, we have to have some safety plans, sir. That's why we have these other health and safety plans, and there's a lot of plans that are published for the benefit of the community. Not everything is privileged, but my point is very simple. The board is run by writing policy that it provides to the administration, who enforces the policy and the guidelines currently listed in these areas. There's certain things that this board does that don't necessarily get documented into these policies or haven't been documented into these policies by board action. And those guidelines should be recorded and held somewhere. Who's holding those? And I think if the only guidelines that are being provided in this policy under the authority of this government board, I think under authority it should say establish board policy and guidelines contained wherein that policy. Otherwise, it's a blind trust again, right? You have to document where your policy and your guidelines are. So I think we should edit this guidelines to define the guidelines within this policy and established in this board policy and the guidelines within this policy. And board approved health and safety plans followed by the students, parents, guardians, and district staff. You don't want to give authority outside of the understanding of what they have the authority to do and what those people are going to be held to or held accountable to. If you're going to have rules, like this policy is, it's a law at local level, we should at least let the people know what those laws are.
Oh, okay, I have no problem with that. Ms. Spinelli, do you have any issue with that?
Sorry, no, I do not.
Thank you. Mr. Cleaver, please note, and I have that updated to contain the verbiage that Mr. Bradley spoke about. Okay? Thank you, Mr. Riley.
And I believe this policy, to be clear, should also include the list of immunizations that are required, right? All students shall be immunized against certain diseases in accordance with Pennsylvania statutes. We should list which those immunizations are within our policy. Or at least
Or
add
reference
the
the documents, yeah, on the PA Department of Health.
Right, or add to the
right.
documents so the person can find them.
Okay, sure. I believe it is contained on the school website at registration time. And I know that is strictly adhered to as a process of collecting the immunizations by the school nurses and the staff that enrolls our students. But I have no issue with it referencing the place on the PD website describing what the required immunizations are, or I think that is a better place than having a hard reference to the document.
And I would agree.
Okay, any other questions? I apologize, that window I'm trying to remove.
Mr. Cleaver, maybe if you just hit escape, it'll go away.
Well, and the last one is on page. It looks like for this one it would be page 1, 2, 3. Number 3. Providing the number 3, it says the superintendent shall investigate and recommend to the board district-sponsored programs of the immunization that may be warranted by circumstances and the health of the school community, right?
On page 3, Mr. Bradley, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
page 3, number 3. It's given the superintendent the responsibility, not just the may, it's a shall, right? He shall do this. He shall investigate and recommend to the board district sponsored programs of immunization that may be warranted by circumstances and the health of the school community, right? Any such program is subject to board approval and may be conducted in cooperation with local health agencies. Why was that added to this?
That was not added. That's been there since
I
2000.
know. I understand. Let me rephrase. Why is that caveat within this school policy that was provided by the PSBA? Did anyone ever ask the PSBA the rationale behind number 3 that is not listed as any state law reference like number 2 is? Number 2 has references in law number 2, number 4, number 5, number 6, and number 7. If you go down to health records, it has referenced in law number 8 and number 9, right? So why was that added as local law when it's not state law? And why are we adding that responsibility to our superintendent?
That is not the superintendent of the authority. The superintendent will be recommending it to the board. So the board has the authority.
No. It says the responsibility, right? The responsibility is the board's responsibility to give this responsibility to the superintendent, right? Superintendent shall do these things. So the board is ordering its superintendent, right? Whoever that may be, this person, this government agency that was elected by these people are making a new law, a new rule. And that rule says that our employee, this superintendent, this contractual subordinate of this government agency, shall do these things. If he doesn't do these things, that superintendent can get fired, right? That superintendent didn't do his job. He can get reprimanded, rebuked, censured, whatever. So the superintendent shall do certain things. That's how these laws work. The power to do that is provided in state law. That's where number 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7 come in, right? That's why they're there. They're referencing the state law that gives the board the authority to make the responsibility on the superintendent that he shall do something. Here we're adding a responsibility, superintendent shall, within our government agency, and we're telling this superintendent that he shall do number 3. And we have no state law backing us to do it. We're creating our own law. And my question was, since I know that Rita and Larry didn't create this line item, and whoever preceded us may or may not have even looked at this line item, if it's always been provided as, hey, it was there before, it's still there, and it's not green, so I don't have to read it, right? I'm reading is, why are we telling our superintendent that he has this authority, has this responsibility, has this legal obligation, shall, to do this, and there's no state mandate or law that's referenced in it by the Pennsylvania School Board Association, by no reference behind it. We all understand how this system works, right? We have these laws, local laws, they go against the state laws. That's why they're listed at the beginning of the policies. And that's why they're referenced after each line item of why that authority exists. And the lack thereof would say that that does not exist within our state authority. So therefore we're adding it. My question is, why are we adding it? Larry, Rita, why is this being added?
Mr. Bradley, if you let me speak, I believe that section is in case of a local outbreak of an issue with the local health department. I remember when I actually was in school that we got immunizations in the school, and I believe that would have to be not only brought to the board by the superintendent, but approved by the board and to have the local health department support. So these are things that are outside of the recommended level of immunizations. And if an outbreak occurs within a community of a certain disease that is not on the recommended list of immunizations, this clause probably gives the authority to the board to have those immunizations provided should the parents of the students want them to occur.
One of the
Well, I don't think they have that.
one of the other health issues that arose too that was at the local level was the H1N1, if you remember. that we became a pod appointed distribution, and the board had to approve us being a pod in the event of a vaccine for H1N1. So that's another situation where local authority was enacted.
And I believe even with the drive-through flu immunizations that occurred on our property, I believe the board had to approve those and work with the local health department.
Yes, we are considered a pod appointed distribution. Several schools in the area are throughout Carbon and Lehigh County. We work with Mark Nalesnik, our emergency response crew works with them, and they have all the information and all the sites and all the directions, and we update our safety plan with them on a yearly basis.
Guys, that's completely separate and different. That's not what this is saying. That's not what this is.
Okay, that's in your opinion, Mr.
Not in my
Director.
opinion, sir. That's not in my
Okay.
opinion. When
Thank
you're talking
you,
about the
Mr.
pod,
Mayor.
the pod is a public service.
I have no further comment.
Hold on, Larry. The pod is a public service that this district, just like if it was a hurricane and they used our Franklin School as a shelter when we had Franklin School. That's just the service we provide. That's what that pod is. This is telling your superintendent he has the responsibility to do this. My question to you was, why did the PSBA put this in, since we did not, and does it still belong? And can we ask the PSBA why this is in, so that we have real justification, not just your make-believe stuff that you're trying to guess about when you were a kid and maybe somebody wanted to shoot you up with something. The question becomes,
Okay,
why are you
okay,
doing that?
please. I don't appreciate that at all, Mr.
You don't
Bradley.
appreciate what?
Right
That's
away, you
exactly
go
what you
off on
just
a
said.
tangent and you start attacking people.
I
Why
didn't
must you
attack
do
anybody.
that?
You
Yes,
brought it
did.
up when you were a kid.
Mr.
When you were-
Clifford, can you please move on?
You brought it up when you were a kid. I'm just saying, why are you giving
I
this
got
guy
an
authority?
immunization in school when I was a
We
kid.
are in
We all
policy
did. We all got
314,
immunizations. Hold on, we all-
code of
hold on.
physical
This-
exams.
you can't
You'll
just
see
because Larry.
that
just-
it's
hold
listed
on,
there.
guys. Just
The
Mr.
purpose
Cleaver,
again,
please. Mr.
for
Cleaver,
this
who's running this meeting?
is
Hold
this-
on.
and this
Hold
is
on.
an
Why are you
employee-
talking
I'm
over me?
running the meeting.
Um,
We're
Who's
moving
running
on.
this
Thank
meeting?
you.
Why are you talking
So,
over me? I'm trying to have a
we
conversation
are,
with Larry.
you can see here.
Can you
for-
please
for
mute
this
Mr. Cleaver
policy,
so Larry and I
the
can have a
physical-
conversation regarding
Physical
number 3?
exams.
Larry, can you
Again, the
please
same
mute him?
thing with this. The green is listed for the recommended changes that are on here. It talks about the policy and it talks about the health monitoring. Again, this is COVID related within the guidelines. This is another policy that has guidelines listed in there, and it talks about self-monitoring. We do currently request that our employees self-monitor themselves with temperature checks and keep track of those temperature checks as we move through this pandemic. So that's where this recommendation comes from. And yes, this is a health and state PSBA recommendation to be in compliance with the Department of Health, and also the any type of state mandate that has been developed from the guidance, whether it be state or local health officials, whether it be the Carbon County Emergency or the Pennsylvania Department of Health as well. When we have a situation that arises, we have contacts from the Department of Health. If we have a positive case, for example, of COVID, we will go through them and take their recommendations and notify anyone that they feel needs to be notified. And that is just the guidelines that talks about employees returning to school as well. But if we are notified by them, we will take our guidance from the Department of Health officials.
Now, can we please go? Thank you for your diatribe. Can we please go back to the policy we're having?
Is
a
there any
discussion on?
questions on policy?
Mr. Cleaver, please.
Any questions on
Show
policy
some respect to the board of
314?
directors here that are supposed to be running this
Mr.
meeting.
Bradley, when you show respect, you
I
get
did
respect
by
in
talking
return.
to Mr. Stern. He has the
When-
responsibility to run
and
this meeting. Please do not
they,
go off of your diatribe. We're having a very
Any
simple
questions
conversation.
on policy 314?
You are such a bully, sir. Stop. Please, let me finish my sentence. Mr. Stern, you're the president of this board. You're added yourself onto this policy committee meeting. There's only 3 of us, and you're supposed to be monitoring it, yet you're joined in as one of the 3. Why is number 3 on policy 203 added when we have no state authority? And I would like the board to ask the PSBA who wrote this to have some understanding. Can we as a committee please respectfully ask why this is in this policy? Because I don't believe, sorry Larry, I just don't believe you with your childhood story. Thank
Any
you.
question? Thank you. Any
Well,
questions
now,
on
can we do
policy
that, sir?
314?
Can we please get that done? This is a committee. This is what we're seeking. Let's please get that done. And then we have questions on this next policy as well.
I'm not sure why you have to speak in the tones you do, Mr. Bradley, and show disrespect to everyone that challenges anything that you have to say. I don't know why you do that. You know, if you would speak normally to people and not say subordinate and not say about my diatribes and not say about when somebody stuck me with a needle when I was in high school and all that type of stuff, maybe we'd get somewhere. But at this point in time, I feel the language is appropriate. And if Mrs. Spinelli would like an investigation into the PSBA on why they put it in there, we can do it. I know you do. I don't. Ms. Spinelli, do you have any input on that topic? Thank you.
My only input would be I disagree with Mr. Bradley that that's not in accordance with what you and Mr. Cleaver were saying. What that actually says, and this is what concerns me about the way people interpret things, is that that's exactly it. It says in accordance with local officials, and it also says, Mr. Cleaver, if you could go back to that number 3, please. Okay. Investigate and recommend to the board district-sponsored programs of immunization. That means the district is going to do it. That may be warranted by circumstances and the health of the school community. In other words, if it's warranted that the school has to sponsor an immunization for something that is only here, the board has to approve it, and it may be conducted in cooperation with local health agencies. I don't think there's anything at all that can't be understood in that particular sentence. So I have no problem with it whatsoever. You can go on, Mr. Cleaver. Thank you.
Or I can make my comment if you don't mind. Or am I being silenced?
Policy, any questions on policy?
Hey, wait a
314?
second. I'm asking the question.
I think you made your comments.
No, I did not make my comment. I'm going to retort back to Ms. Spinelli and yourself. So first of all, the board, as Ms. Spinelli mentioned, has some authority. If it is the board's authority, it should be done within the board at the board level because we're held accountable by the stakeholders. If you're going to circumvent that by giving this responsibility, if he goes to above number 3 where it says the superintendent, so this is the board's subordinate employee, if they're going to do it, that takes away from the community having the right to do it. You're giving him authority and you're giving this board authority one deep, as I call it, outside of our legal authority because there's no law referenced in it. And I just said before we do such a thing, we should seek the reason why, not guess, but actually look it up so you don't have to worry about interpreting it so that we can understand why you're doing this. Now, if you take offense to the critical thinking skills of myself, that's on you, Larry and Rita, that's fine. But the reality is here is a authority that you're providing and requiring your superintendent to take that does not have any legal authority referenced in it. I think that should be reviewed by the PSBA prior to
Mr. Bradley, why don't you contact them
Why are
and
you
take care
cutting
of
me
it?
off? I thought you were our contact responsibility for the PSBA.
Anyone is allowed to contact PSBA that's a board member.
Then
Why don't you
we-
take care
then
of
why
it?
don't we agree? Hold on. Then if we think that I should do it, that means we think someone should do it. And if we're going to do it, let's agree to do it as a group. Compromise. Recognize how this works. Maybe if you don't restrict the ideology of some of the board members, you won't have to fight them so hard. Don't hate, right? Just learn and move forward. I think this is something that should be reviewed. I'm seeking it to be reviewed. Obviously, by your comment, you agree that I should probably get it reviewed. I'm going to make the sentence that you're our PSBA representative. Reach out to them. You're on the policy committee. Reach out to them for this committee on the behalf of the committee.
Mr. Bradley, I don't take my orders from you.
You're right. You take them from the people, and the people have a committee, and the committee made a meeting, So now we have a choice. Who would this committee like to have discuss this prior to? I'll take these orders. I don't mind. Who should this committee have reach out to the PSBA to identify this prior to its adoption, so that this committee can make an informed decision, which is our responsibility? Who would you like me to do it, or I suggested Rita should do it? If Rita doesn't want to do it, and you guys want to authorize me to do it prior to adopting this, I have no problem with that. I will gladly take on that responsibility as a volunteer board member. But at least we should agree that it should be done. And it sounds like Rita agrees it should be done. I agree it should be done. What do you think,
I
Larry?
said I didn't think it should be done. I
you told
said
me to
if
do
it
it.
will make you happy, you can do it.
I know, but Rita, if you're asking me to do it and you're suggesting that I do it, you must see value in it being done, even if it's for my own benefit. So therefore, you would agree that that's a good idea to have it done.
I think we need to move on because this is
No,
going
I want to
nowhere.
get a resolution here. I want to find out whether or not this
Policy
board.
3,
Hold on, Mr. Cleaver.
314.
Mr. Cleaver, just because
has been
Rita.
reviewed.
Mr.
Any
Cleaver.
questions regarding policy 314?
Yes, Mr. Cleaver, stop. If Rita thinks we should move on, that does not mean to
Mr.
shut
Bradley,
me
I
up.
think she
That's
made her
not
comment.
314.
She does not have the authority to do that, Mr. Cleaver. Please, do not take your directions from an individual director. This is a committee. So, the
Again,
question at hand.
any questions
The
on
question
policy
at hand,
314?
sir. The question
Mr.
at
Bradley,
hand.
we said we don't need the clarification on that segment of that policy.
You don't
Please
feel
move
that
on.
it's needed.
No, I do not, sir.
Rita, do you
I'd
feel
like
that
to
it's
direct
needed?
Mr.
Hold on,
Stern
Mr.
and Ms.
Cleaver.
Spinelli
What
to
is
move
wrong
on.
with you, sir? Why do you
Yes,
have to be
please
such a
move on.
bully? We're
Policy
having-
314.
Mr.
That
Cleaver.
we reviewed earlier.
Mr. Cleaver,
We
please.
mentioned, is there any questions on that policy?
Mr. Cleaver, please, can you stop interrupting when we're having a conversation? We're taking a.
We have moved.
I've got it directed by the majority of the committee to move forward, Mr.
You
Bradley.
got a
and that's
directive
gonna
from the
be
majority of the committee that's
No, thank
stifling
you.
the idea that we have to have a.
314, is there any questions?
You're
Ms.
just
Spinelli,
arrogant.
Mr. Stern,
I can't believe
on
you
that
are.
policy, or Mr. Bradley?
Mr. Stern, why are you so arrogant about this? Why can't you just let me have a sentence and say, hey, if you guys want to vote not to do it, then say I don't want to do it. But I'm going to a whole sentence on this recording that you're not going to do this. That's all I'm looking for.
Any,
I want my soundbite.
any
sir.
questions
Give
again
it
on
to me.
policy 314?
I have none, Mr. Cleaver.
I have two.
Okay. Relayed to policy 314, yes, sir.
Yes, I have two. First of all, please silence Mr. Cleaver so he doesn't shut me up. I want to know why this authority was provided and changed from medical to physical. Do you even know the difference between the two? And I want to know why it was changed. Does anyone have an answer to that at this time? Or should we send this to the PSBA that wrote this so that they can better educate us before we just rubber stamp it and move on as a local government board that has a responsibility to serve our community?
Can you point out exactly what you're talking about and where?
Can you see the screen? Can you see the screen that you're looking at now?
You see where it says the board shall require.
Look under
physical-
authority. I'm sorry, Larry, are you talking or am I? I thought she asked me.
I'm going to show you where. it
Oh,
is.
okay.
Are you going to show
Alrighty.
her? Thank you, Larry.
Yes, because it says the board shall require physical examination.
No, Larry.
Because it says physical
No,
examination.
no, Larry. No, Larry. I'm talking up further. Go under authority, Larry.
Mr. Bradley, did you read it in purpose? Read the purpose, please.
Mr.
No,
Stern.
Mr. Bradley, read purpose, please. It says the board shall require physical examination. Then in the authority section, it said all candidates should undergo a medical. That is crossed out and made physical to make the wording consistent.
No,
To
that's
match
not,
the
sir, that's
to match
not,
the definition as part of the policy, that is correct, Mr. Stern.
that is not the case that we're looking at here. I'm asking the question is, why are we doing a physical examination instead of a medical examination? Do you know the difference between the two? I agree that they have to be equal in all portions of the policy. So you can go under purpose and start there, and you can say, why does it say physical examination?
because the physical examination was the original part of the definition.
What's
And then
the
it had
difference?
medical and authority. Physical examination can be done by a nurse practitioner or licensed physician assistant. A medical examination is done by a doctor.
And what's the difference between a medical and physical examination? Do you know?
I think he kind of just said that.
No, he did not. Sorry.
Mr. Bradley, could you just wait a minute?
The medical is part of the study of the practice of medicine.
No.
It's different from a physical.
No, it is not. Do you guys have any clue of what you're even reading or applying?
Mr. Bradley, the definition of medical of or relating to the study of practice or medicine. That's the definition.
Yeah, but
Thank you.
but when added to, oh God, you guys are so thick. Let me try this. I'll go really slow, and I'll pretend you're in 5th grade. When the word medical is used as an adjective
You wouldn't
to
be so
describe. Excuse me, sir. I'm
derogatory.
talking.
No,
Please.
excuse me.
Excuse me, sir. I'm
Please
talking.
stop it
Why are
with
you
the
cutting me?
Please stop it with the derogatory comments.
I'm just putting it down. No,
No.
it's not derogatory.
No, yes, you are. You're saying we're going to talk to everybody like they're in 5th grade. Now,
Correct,
come on,
because
sir.
then I'll talk to like I'm in 5th grade. I don't mind. Sometimes when you're a manager, you stand up and say, you know what? Sometimes I don't know. I'm humble enough. Talk to me like I'm in 5th grade to make sure that I really understand this. And I'd like to try to, respectfully understand that you guys might not know. But when the word medical is used to be an adjective in combination with the word examination, it is a completely different thing than when the word physical is used as the modifier adjective to examination. And it is a very specific thing. A physical examination, right, as Mr. Cleaver stated, could be done by different people. We understand that criteria. But the physical examination is to figure out what a problem is. A medical examination is done to a healthy person. There's 2 different things. They're charged differently. They're addressed differently. They're different in Medicare. They're different all across the entire field. So when the board requires a physical examination of all district employees, shall be required, right, prior to enrollment, you're looking for problems within a individual. When you're asking for a medical examination, you're finding out the person's fitness. Can they lift a 50-pound box? There's 2 different criteria.
Mr. Bradley, that is incorrect. The physical is when your body is fit for physical work to be done. Height, weight, chest size, running, jumping.
Yeah, you're making sure you can lift a
Some
50-pound box.
physically exhausting test. A medical has to do with blood test, blood pressure, urine test, or if any other disease occurred. So actually, they are flipped from your definition.
Now, a physical examination would be to check your body's overall signs of existing health issues, right? You look at your ears,
What
your
you
eyes,
said
your
about
nose,
lifting a box, that would be part of a physical, not a medical one.
That's a physical, right? That's a physical examination. Ears, eyes, nose, throat, lungs, heart, right? Looks at all the parts of your bodies for abnormalities, functions, reflexes.
I have no further comments regarding
But
this.
I understand you're trying to shut me up, but my question is, why is this board providing and requiring physical examinations of all district employees rather than medical examinations? And why is the PSBA doing it when there is no, again, underlying law associated in the state of Pennsylvania that would require such a thing? Right? You look at Pennsylvania School Code 1418, just like it's referenced. You guys are just, it appears to me that this committee is taking the PSBA at their word, and they're failing to read the words, understand what they mean, and make sure that we have these laws, these local laws, these requirements that say shall undergo a physical examination. All candidates shall undergo a physical examination, right? For fitness. why are we making this an obligation?
Sorry,
Is it an
any other
is it an
questions for this
obligation?
policy?
Sorry?
What's your other question, Mr. Bradley?
Let's deal with one at a time, because you guys just kind of jump all over the place, man. You got to relax.
Well, I think you're the one that
Relax.
jumps all over the place because you're confusing medical and physical.
I'm not confusing them at all, sir.
Oh, I think
Until
you
5
did.
minutes ago, we didn't even have a team on this committee that understood the difference or that there was a difference.
Well, no, why even talk to you about it? Because you're going to make everybody wrong anyway. That's the point.
Any other
If
questions
the shoe fits,
regarding this
sir. If
policy?
the shoe fits.
Ms. Spinelli and
But-
Mr. Stern.
But yes, we have two. We're doing this one first, Mr. Cleaver.
Do you have
Please.
any
Mr.
other
Cleaver,
questions?
Why do you
Can
stop
I
being a
just
bully?
say
We have
something,
one.
Mr. Cleaver?
What does section 1418 say under the Pennsylvania School Code?
I have,
Well,
they're not having
no, it's
information in front of
important.
me.
Look, you
I
guys.
didn't click on the
I
link in
did.
front of me.
I did. I'm trying to help you now.
Well,
I'll work with you.
I'm glad, Mr. Bradley. Then
Great.
why don't you instead of you asking a question that you already know the answers to, why do you continue to do that to try and make everyone look they don't know what they're talking about?
Because
you
maybe
continue
they
to ask
don't,
the
and a
same
little humble
question
pie would be
over and
beneficial
over and
to
over
them.
again.
Yeah,
you
that's
come at everyone in the committee at all times with different comments. It needs to stop.
No, it doesn't. You guys need to stop. Because here, I'm going to read it to you. And I'll read it like a fifth grader again, just so you guys can get all mad and angry that Mr. Bradley read what was going on and is trying to do his job and you blocking him. Right? Stop the hate, sir. Do the job. Here we go. Section authority. After receiving an official employment, but prior to beginning employment, and then it goes on, and it says number one. And number one, if you go up higher, Mr. Cleaver, please, since I don't have access to, and you will not share my screen, can you please move that up to the higher part of the screen so everybody else can see where we're following? Number one is Pennsylvania School Codes 1418. Pennsylvania School Code 1418, medical examination of teacher and other persons. All teachers, janitors, cooks, and other cafeteria help, and all other employed at school shall, which is important, a shall, right, be required to take a pre-employment, here we go, medical examination, the results of which shall be recorded on forms prescribed by the Secretary of Health and shall be available to the employing authorities. So I have to say that this board is failing to understand what these policies are. They're laws at the local level, taking authority to a board, an elected authority, and making sure that we administer that authority in a proper fashion. So when this board is looking at policy 314 and it changed the word medical to physical and then backed it up the other way and then didn't put it in green and didn't do any of the other stuff, and then they're referencing Pennsylvania School Code 1418, it is abdicating its authority. It is not doing its responsible job, right? And it's doing a disservice to the community. And that disservice has resulted in harm to our students, a financial train wreck. And you guys yelling and arguing at me because I'm trying to say, guys, we have a job to do. Let's do it. And instead of getting so stubborn, arrogant, I suggest just resign and let those of us that know what we're doing do this job. And those of you that do not, sit in the audience, help us as a community so that we all can do this job. There's 8 attendees in this meeting. They should all be able to reach out and help us read all of these codes, use basic English, and understand the difference between the word shall, all, must, medical examination, not physical examination, medical examination. And then we should make sure that our policies are within our authority. We give our responsibility, abdicate some of it, right, to our subordinate superintendent, and then oversee that he does it. And if he doesn't, he answers to the board, who answers to the stakeholders. You guys have this thing all messed up. Now, go ahead, rant all you guys want about me, but the reality is, you're not doing your job.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. Other questions regarding this policy?
Yes, there is. There's one more, but let's deal with this
Moving
one
on
first.
to policy 705.
No. Sir, wait a second. We got 2 on this one. This is just
Again,
the first one.
the copy of
Mr.
facilities
Cleaver.
and workplace. This is in
Why are
accordance
you
with
bullying
guidance
this?
again by state and local officials. We do have a health and safety plan as part of this. You can go through here and see The recommendation changes. Our health and safety plan meets, our health and safety committee meet every year, quarterly. This is part of our insurance requirement too. We go over workers' comp claims. We go over many different situations in the schools. We walk through the buildings as part of it and do a self-assessment. So we do post signs when needed. Also, we do provide information to that committee that from our insurance companies. And in turn, we give information from our committee, take notes in those committee, health and safety committee meetings. And that is shared with them too. There is personnel information that is shared during that because it discusses workers' comp claims and other type of claims that have been put forward. So it is a confidential meeting that does take place. That's why in the committee, it does only have employees of the district.
Can we please go back to the other one? We still have the other. I said there was 2 issues. Why are you truncating me, Mr. Cleaver? And Mr. Stern, why are you allowing this man to do that? You recognize that we have a responsibility.
You hang on a point, you make your point, and then you hang on it.
I know, but we still have to address it. I'm not hanging on it. You have to address it.
You did not
Mr. Bradley, not giving you a response to your questions that you don't agree with is not addressing. I'm sorry that you don't agree with, the view or the opinion or the way something is read, but that does not constitute not answering your question or not addressing it. Until you understand that, you can't sit here and say we're not addressing it. You get an answer, you get a response, you don't like it, and you continue.
Well, Mr.
That
Cleaver,
is your-
I had
that
2
is your-
things that I wanted to go over. We wanted to do one at a
Again,
time.
is there
Somewhere
any
along the line,
questions on policy
Mr.
705?
Cleaver, somewhere along the line, you're so arrogant. Stop it, sir. It's a committee meeting. I'm a committee member. Show some respect. Now, here's what I'm getting at. On the first
Is there any
one-
questions on
Yes,
policy
no, sir.
705?
Please do not truncate me. We're trying to do something. This is so goofy, man. What's wrong with you? I thought
Mr.
you're a
Stern,
professional.
Ms. Spinelli, or again,
Mr.
questions
Cleaver,
on
we're
policy 705.
You know what, guys? I can't believe that you guys come off so bad. And we know why. Larry, no offense. I said I had 2 things. Why are we getting to address the second one? Number 2, I'm talking about.
You've had the opportunity
I
several
have the.
times.
We want to deal with the first one first because you guys just push it
Move
off.
on.
You went
What's
to the second thing.
Why
You
are
went
you
up,
moving
you
on?
said,
Wait,
Mr.
if
Bradley,
it's
your
different from
second
the
comment
law-
was on number 1 under legal
If it's
14,
different, wait a second. Let's
18.
go back.
That was the second
No,
decision
sir.
you had.
Sir,
And then
please.
you made the comment about how you didn't think things were being done
You
right.
can
So did
truncate it
have
all you
2
want, but the
opportunities
reality
to
is
be-
this is what you guys are doing. Stop it, man. You can't bulldoze over me. You know better. Right?
Policy
No,
705.
sir. Back
man.
up. Back up
I'm
to the one
requesting
we're
any
doing.
questions?
Yes,
regarding
we have-
this policy.
Jesus, you guys are horrible. Why am I even in this committee, Mr. Stern? You don't belong on the committee. You're supposed to be an ex facto member. I think you're bullying us, and you're trying to prevent me from having my say in a committee as a board of director. Please, there is a problem with that.
If anyone
other
listens to this, there will be no one that says that you
I don't. You know what? That's fine. But the reality is, I still have a right to speak. I have a right to not be truncated or
not
drowned
ad
out by a
nauseam. You
subordinate
don't have a right to
superintendent.
speak ad nauseum.
I do have the right to speak at a committee meeting. It is most definitely my elected right to speak at a committee meeting, and we need to make an informed decision.
If
And
the
I'm trying to show you.
majority
Hold
suggests
on.
we move on.
I
then we
will,
move
but
on.
you got to realize that you have to make an informed decision. If you're going to make a decision that's in violation and obstruction
Mr. Bradley,
to
the
this
violation
law,
is in your mind.
No, it's
Mr.
not my mind.
Stern
They got a
and Ms.
match.
Spinelli do
You
not
are
feel there's a
stating-
violation.
I know they don't, but it's not a
Then we
majority
can't
rule,
continue.
sir. This is
You're
not a
losing
majority
Again,
rule when you're.
I'm going to attempt to move on the
It
policy
is not.
705.
It's not a majority
Back to
rule,
you.
sir. You're
You're-
just you're pushing it
You're
through.
using the school code of 1949 as a literal when things have changed since 1949.
No, they have not. If they changed, they would have adopted them, sir.
No, I don't think so.
They're amended. Yes, they're amended. Look, added July 14, 1957. That was amended 10 years later. This one was amended. They get amended, sir. That's why
You
it's
may
up to
move-
date. It's a
you may
living
move on,
document.
Mr.
Are you
Cleaver.
arguing that the
Thank you.
Pennsylvania school code
Any
is not?
questions for 705?
I have questions for 705, but I'm still trying
Thank
to
you.
deal with the questions for 314.
I'm not addressing any more
Why are
questions.
you not- wait a
We've had
second.
more than enough time. Is
No,
there any more
no,
questions
no, it's not
for
a time
705?
limit, sir. Wait a second. On 314, you have a situation under guidelines that the district may require employees to participate in a health monitoring by designated staff to check for signs and symptoms of communicable diseases in accordance with guidelines issued by the state and health officials and a board-approved health safety plan. So the question's going to be, if we do that, and we're trying to provide this, right? as a guideline, not within state law. We don't have the law to do this. We're just going to do this internally, like Rita said. If you're going to do this and you find somebody with a communicable disease like COVID-19, what is Plan B and what is the guideline for Plan B? It is
Mr.
not
Bradley, you as a board member approved those safety and
I
reopening
understand
guidelines.
that, sir.
They're
But
listed on that.
once again, please, if you could just learn to listen, you'd be
Mr.
so
Bradley,
much further ahead.
again, your question is answered with.
No,
the
it is
health-
not answered, sir. It is not answered. Focus in this.
Go
In
down
this,
to, go down to
sir.
the third paragraph in there, Mr. Bradley. Read it.
Go ahead.
It states what it has. I'm not reading it.
Go ahead.
No, I'm not.
Why?
Again, this is why we need to.
Yeah, you got to
I'm
move it
done
on,
with
Mr. Cleaver.
your
Just take the
comment. Thank
control
you.
of the meeting and don't let the board of directors that are having a committee
Mr.
meeting
Brad,
have a
Mr.
discussion.
Is there any comments? Again, I'm going to attempt
Yes,
to go
my
to the
comment is that
policy
you're
705.
arrogant and you're silencing a committee member. That's my
Anything
mention. And
with-
I'd like this committee head, which should be Larry Stern. I think he made himself, ordained himself, committee leader of this
Ms.
committee.
Spinelli, Mr. Stern, are
Should
you okay to move
reprimand the
on?
person hosting
Yes,
this
I'm
meeting.
fine with that, Mr. Cleaver.
Because we
Thank
do not
you.
have the ability
So,
to have a conversation if you're just going
Questions
to
on
rubber stamp them.
705 then? We'll
Is there a
attempt
reason
again.
for a committee if you're just going to rubber stamp them and not even have the conversation? Why not even have the conversation, sir?
Mr. Bradley, we're not having a conversation. You're holding court. There is
Yeah.
no conversation where you're concerned. Please move on, Mr. Cleaver.
There is a concern. Don't be so
70
silly.
705, we did, again, review, and we talked about.
705, yes, you have
I know
issues.
it was before.
Yeah, before.
Mr. Bradley's discussion, but it was part of our health and safety group that we have here for the district. Is there any questions regarding policy 705?
You guys going to go? You have anything? You're just going to rubber stamp it. Rita, please tell me you have
Questions?
something wrong with this. Larry, tell me something, right? You have
No
some
questions
understanding you have
regarding 705? Okay, moving on.
Come on, Larry.
Policy
Larry,
803.
nothing?
803.
How about if I have
this
some? Can I
is
talk
the
yet or
school
not?
calendar.
Can I talk yet, Cleaver, or
We're
not?
going through if you look, this
I talk
is
yet,
all
Cleaver, or you're just
directly
gonna run me
related
over?
to
You running me
COVID
over?
and the pandemic. It talks about emergency arising. You could see how it, would be directly in accordance with that. It used to be very basic, but now with the situation in COVID, the policy has been adapted. Provisions are, there that are allowed at the local level. For example, flexible instructional days. There is provisions that allow less than a certain amount of years as far as the board shall enact a temporary provision in response to an emergency which may remain in effect for a period of no more than 4 years. So if there is something that has changed due to COVID or due to something else where the board has an emergency, that change can only last for 4 years. I do know right now in legislation, as of recently as today, we were notified that there is some legislation pending about allowing students to attend school an additional year and also be part of extra and co-curricular activities due to the pandemic. So if that would come into play, that would, be automatically, because it's state law, it would not have to be adapted at the local level. It would be state law. I don't know if you saw that information that came across today in many of the PSBA reports.
I did hear that on several occasions and actually had a conversation about it on Tuesday with other board members from other boards. Thank you.
You have an issue here, guys. If you read the underlying laws that are pertaining to this policy, they're 1518 and 510. And the only references that you have on that are related to fire drills, right? And the ability to, 510 is the ability to have rules for safety patrols, okay? That they don't have any liability, basically. What this board did when they gave the superintendent the authority for this 4-year program, they have removed local control and they've allowed the state governor the ability to address directly to the superintendent, circumventing the local control of the board for all of these matters, and giving them a 4-year. At which point, like you just said, they just added in extra training days, years, ages, all not within the school code, all not within local control. All that you have to pay for is its board of directors. And you guys rubber stamped this without any review and any understanding.
Mr.
Please.
Bradley, I think the understanding is lacking on your end. We have had this discussion so many times that the school code is not the only thing we have to look at. There are laws, there is case law. The PSBA people who wrote these policies have been doing this since March. They have vetted it through attorneys, through the state, through PTE, through the health department. And once again, I understand that you think you have everything figured out and all the answers, but I'm always going to take the opinion of professionals who have vetted this over yours. Somehow you're going to have to get that into your head. So I know for a fact, because I've been talking about these things since March with other people, this has gone on all summer, and this is the way it was decided. So you can argue local control, you can blame the governor, you can do whatever you want, but if we don't do what the state says, we don't get our state funding, and then your taxes will be doubled. So if that's what you want, fine.
Oh, honey, look, on 1518,
Again,
Law 510
inappropriate,
and law-
inappropriate.
what's inappropriate?
What did you don't even know what you said, do you?
Whatever
You
you
don't
think,
even
whatever
listen to
you,
you.
your opinion, whatever you think's inappropriate, it's up to you. Okay, so what the 3 laws that are legally responsible, and I agree, reviewing the professional is fine, but you still have to have some, don't be so gullible, please, have some understanding to say, wait a second, if this school policy has so many non-references to state law, why are we giving this authority? And you're saying that the governor is holding you hostage, right? To
I
laws
never
that keep
said
you-
that.
Are
Do
you
you
going to
see
tell me
what
that
you-
he's not going to
My
provide state money
discussion
if you
is
don't do
over
this?
with this with you,
Do you
Mr.
feel
Bradley. I'm
leveraged?
done. I said my piece. You said yours.
And it's
Please
recorded.
move on.
It's recorded. Yeah, you can move on and shut me up, but I get my chance to speak. And I'm saying that this policy does not have references to the school, to the state law. And of the 3 references that it has under legal, it has number 1, and then it has PS 510, right? Which is safety patrol, and SSPS 1038.2. Do you guys even know what that one is? You don't. I know you didn't, because you didn't look it up. I'm sure you didn't. Prove me wrong, and if you can, it's your chance. Give me some humble pie. Somebody tell me what 10038.2 is. Mr. Cleaver, I'll even let you do it. You can probably look it up on the internet before you even get a chance. Come on, make me look like you know. Okay. That has to do with workman's comp. Okay? You have an issue here. You're not reading the policy. Right? You're referencing policies in this 705 that aren't even referenced in the policy.
Mr. Bradley, we're on policy 803.
If you want to go to 803,
We've been on
Listen.
policy 803
I'm on 705. I don't know why you guys keep pushing everything through.
because we
Yeah, you're arrogant. It's rude. But even
Any other
even
questions
on
regarding
even on
803?
803, even on 803, if you still look at the school codes that are relative to that order, you still didn't look them up. And Rita, that's your job. Okay? That's your job. Larry, it's your job. You should say, what is 1501? You should know what 1501 is, and you should find out whether or not it meets 1501. Because
Move
when it
on to
doesn't,
open
it'd be a
discussion.
contradiction.
Any comments from the attendees regarding open
You're not
discussion?
even letting the board members speak.
Attendees under open discussion? No request for comment from attendees under open discussion.
Good. I will mention that all the 1501 codes is relative to weather related, right? So it has nothing to do with your funding, Rita, that you're saying that the state is going to hold your funding back. And if you feel pressured that the state's going to hold your funding unless you do what they tell you to do, you don't belong in a local seat. Please resign.
I think it should relate to the weather because of what happens in the areas of hurricanes and those types of things when schools are damaged and they can't be used to house students. Then I think the school calendar probably does need to be adjusted. So your argument for weather is not correct, Mr. Bradley.
It's not an argument for weather, sir. It's the concept that the
Well,
school
no,
codes.
you referenced that weather is not applicable to this particular policy, but I believe it is.
Stern,
So,
Mr. Stern.
no,
please,
don't be condescending. I
I
entertain a
was
motion,
content- You
Ms.
can
Rita,
shout me
to
out if you
adjourn.
like. If you shout me
I'll
out, you like.
second.
But the legal says that 1501 and 2.
I'm
Those
sorry, I
laws
believe
that
we
you're
have a
referencing.
motion and a motion to
There's
adjourn.
no motions in a committee meeting, sir. But anyway, so
We're
there's
gonna adjourn.
there's
I
a-
appreciate the attendees
there
for
is laws that
attending.
they're referencing, and
based
you are not
on
even
the,
reviewing the
motion
laws that they're
and the
referencing.
motion
Larry.
to
That's the
adjourn.
concern with weather.
Again, thank you for attending.
Oh, honey.